What's up, guys, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Molly is feeling a little under the weather today, so I'm flying solo, pun intended. And real quick before questions, I have a handful of thank yous to throw out because we had a lot of people join our Patreon last week. So thank you to Lee DeMarb, Justin Kim, and Nick Milne, who all joined at the Jedi Master level. And thank you to From a Certain Point of View and Matthew M., who both became Jedi Council members. Guys, that is so generous. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to everyone that signed up for our Patreon last week. The support that you guys showed us was just overwhelming. We blew past the goal for the solo commentary and the Clone Wars commentary, so both of those will be coming soon. And now we're getting close to the time where we're going to have to do the Ewok Adventures, so Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor, and then we're going to do the holiday special, so that'll be really interesting. But thank you guys so much again. Our first question this week comes from Griffin and a ton of other people on YouTube who asked how I feel about the Boba Fett movie cancellation. And I don't know that cancellation is the right word because it was never fully announced, but also we do know that Josh Trank was going to direct that at one point and then he got fired and there was all this turnaround on the schedule. And so yeah, I think they 100% were working on it, but now it's quote unquote dead. I think there's still hope for a resurrection down the line. I wouldn't say just give up on all hope of ever seeing that, but I'm also okay with the fact that they're not doing that right now because they're focusing on The Mandalorian. And if we were getting a Boba Fett movie and The Mandalorian, I don't know, that could have just been too much Mandalorian stuff. I think some people would have been thrilled with that, but I think it's smarter to go with a little more variety. And personally, I'm really excited to see some live action TV Star Wars. I think that could be really big, and I relish the idea of spending 10 episodes telling one story rather than just 2 hours in a movie. That's very exciting to me. Also, I've said this before, but I'm not huge on let's do a Solo movie and a Kenobi movie, even though I want to see that. And then let's do Jabba and Yoda and all their origins. So the Boba Fett movie, that description wasn't very enticing to me. But then they said it's going to be all of the bounty hunters from The Empire Strikes Back. And that's more intriguing to me because it could have been a team up, or maybe they're all competing for the same bounty, like in Smokin' Aces or something like that. That's a little cooler. But one other thing I'll say about me being okay with this news is that I want to get into other eras of Star Wars. I want to go ancient history. I'd even jump into the future. I don't want to keep retreading the original trilogy era, which Rogue One and Solo have done so far. Both good movies that I enjoyed. If we get a Kenobi movie, I guess that's kind of an in-between prequel and OT, but I assume the Boba Fett movie would have been kind of original trilogy era, and I'm just ready to move on, you know? So yeah, I'm okay with this news. I think I would feel differently about it if we didn't have The Mandalorian in the works and if we didn't know anything about that. And maybe that's part of the reason they started talking about it and revealing details, is because they knew that the Boba Fett movie was dead, and maybe they were like, we should start talking about this other Mandalorian thing. I don't know, but overall, I'm okay with it. Sam McDonald wants to know what origin story I do want to see in Star Wars if we explored ancient history, and I liked the way you worded that, not based around a character, but more events or organizations like the Jedi Order or the first person that discovered hyperspace. And I don't really need to get into the technical stuff of hyperspace, that's not for me, but I would say the origins of the Jedi Order. That's what I want to see. And presumably the Sith as well, how they came about, and then how the Sith splintered off from them. And that was explored pretty extensively in Legends and stories that I liked, but also they're kind of convoluted with the Tho-Yor and these pyramids that just appear and call Force-sensitive people on them to take them off to Tython, and then they made Force-imbued swords, which I do really think is cool. And they've even kind of explored that in the Secrets of the Empire VR experience, but I wouldn't mind if we took that and simplified it a little bit so it's less convoluted. But we've already been kind of exploring that with Ahch-To and Jedha, and I would love to go back to those locations in their prime when they were just flourishing. I think that would be really exciting to see. Ben Dabib asks what I want to see when the Star Wars comics start exploring the time between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, assuming they do so, because the comics are starting to come up on Empire. So assuming they continue, I guess they would go into that era. And the story I care about most is, what was Luke up to? What kind of training did he undergo? Because he didn't go back to Yoda until after Tatooine and Jabba's palace and all that. So yeah, how did he make his lightsaber? Did he go off and kind of learn about other Force cultures like we know that he did in the Legends of Luke book and Shattered Empire, stuff like that? I just want to know what he was up to. So yeah, that's my biggest thing. I wouldn't mind also seeing more from the bounty hunters. We've been talking about them, but I always liked that part of Shadows of the Empire, and the comic for Shadows of the Empire focused on that pretty heavily, was Boba Fett delivering Han to Jabba the Hutt, but all the other bounty hunters are trying to steal Han from him. Maybe that's what the Boba Fett movie could have been about. I really enjoyed that story and the competition aspect of it, which is why I brought it up in the other questions. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing more of that. Kevin Dragos wants to know what Kaz's actual status in the Resistance is, and do his friends or family know that he has effectively left his post in the New Republic? I think that his status is kind of like a maybe temporary one. I kind of wonder if Poe stuck him on the Colossus is like a trial thing. Like maybe this mission in Poe's mind isn't all that important, but he wants to see how Kaz performs. And it turns out that it's going to be more important than anyone thought, because the pirates are making these attacks, and then the First Order is using that to kind of force their way in. I think we're going to see more and more of that. But then, of course, most of the Resistance is going to be wiped out in The Last Jedi. So then Kaz is going to be like a member of this small group. Not to mention the New Republic is going to be gone. So I think that his status is probably going to have to increase. But right now, I guess I kind of see it as a low level, just like on an unimportant mission. It's important to him, but he probably doesn't know that it's not important to anyone else. And I might be way off base there. They might think that it's very important that he be there, but that's just kind of how I'm interpreting it right now. Do his friends or family know that he's left his post? I think so, especially his father. I wonder if they're going to come after him for desertion. I kind of think that they would. Although Poe also kind of did the same thing, so maybe they just have like this understanding. As far as they're concerned, it's peacetime, but if people join the Resistance, maybe the New Republic's like, okay, I mean, you're still kind of sort of working with us. I don't know. I don't think that that stuff is going to get explored, because I do think Hosnian Prime and the New Republic are going to be destroyed in the show probably by the end of season 1. So yeah, I'm not expecting any consequences for Kaz in that regard. I am expecting him to have to rise in the ranks and grow up very quickly once Hosnian Prime is destroyed. Eric Wall asks if clone troopers could have children. In Legends, they definitely could. We had at least one story where a clone trooper had a child. In canon, we don't know, but I would expect that they probably could, although maybe there would be something messy there genetically since they have advanced aging and all that, but I don't know. I kind of assume that, yeah, potentially they could. Also, I'm thinking now in Legends, Boba Fett also had offspring. So yeah, at least in Legends, it's possible. And I don't really see why they would have to change that in canon at all. I don't really think that they're going to explore that, but who knows? Maybe we're going to see a child of a clone down the line. I think that could be actually interesting to explore. That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon, where I left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month will get you access to extra Star Wars explained content, like audio commentaries for the films, and I just mentioned we're going to be doing Solo and the Clone Wars very soon. We also have, for our $2 and up patrons, we just released our commentary for the Clone Wars episode Rising Malevolence, so you can check that out as well, and the combined donations really go a long way in supporting the channel. On to YouTube questions. Supreme Leader Smeagol asks if The Mandalorian could bring back some aspects of Legends Mandalorian culture, like the fact that you didn't necessarily have to be a human to be a Mandalorian, or are they going to stick closer to the canon and interpretation? I kind of hope that they do bring back some Legends stuff. I expect that it's going to be mostly a canon interpretation, but I like the idea that they explore, say, Boba Fett and Jango Fett, who they are still kind of up in the air about whether or not they're Mandalorian. Mandalorians themselves have claimed that they are not, and the book Scum and Villainy recently also claimed that they are not, so I'm guessing they aren't technically by blood. But it could be fun if the Mandalorian is along those same lines, where he's not technically a Mandalorian, but he has the armor, and we could kind of explore what does it mean to be a Mandalorian, and that maybe you don't necessarily have to be born into it, that you can choose that lifestyle if you want to, but in canon, we don't really have a good sense of their heritage like we did in Legends. So that's another thing that I think that they could pull in from Star Wars Legends is their kind of conqueror past, which has been mentioned in canon, but it's just like touched upon. So we could probably dive into that a little more, expand on that. But I would really like it if they kind of did some exploring on what does it truly mean to be a Mandalorian or what have you. Nick Richard wants to know if I'm going to watch LEGO Star Wars AllStars, what do I expect from it, and will I review it? Yes, I will watch it. I haven't watched anything that they've put out so far. I'm not expecting much from it, just, a couple lighthearted jokes, and, characters from the Freemaker adventures like Graballa the Hutt. I really enjoyed them when they were on screen, so I'm expecting to have a little bit of fun with it, but nothing major. Will I review it? I don't know. I might put it in the canon update, even though it's kind of in a canon gray area. The LEGO stuff isn't strictly canon, but I do kind of see them as interpreting canon events. So I don't know. I'm just going to play it by ear and see what I think after I watch it. Carbonite Hunter asks if the unknown regions will ever be fully explored in Star Wars. I really doubt it. I kind of think that they can use the unknown regions as this constant source of mystery. And they're doing that right now, especially in the books with what happened in Thrawn Alliances. So, yeah, I think that can just be kind of an uncharted place where we can strike out into the unknown regions. And yeah, we can explore it some, but people can just go out into unknown planets and we can see something really wacky and weird. And then they can come back to the known galaxy and then they might strike out somewhere else. And I just don't think that they're ever going to fully map it out and chart it for us. I think that it will always be there kind of as a story device where things can just come in or things can go hide. That's where the Empire turned into the First Order. They went out into the unknown regions and they hid. So I do like just having that as an option where, I don't know, maybe there are a couple of safe passages out there. It seems like Palpatine and Thrawn found a few and then used it so that the First Order could develop after Operation Cinder and all that. So, yeah, I just don't see it ever being fully explored. Daily Dose wants to know what happened to the Zabraks of Dathomir. Where are the Night Brothers? I am assuming for now that they shared a similar fate as the Night Sisters. The Separatists came in and wiped the Night Sisters out. I'm kind of thinking they did the same to the Night Brothers, or maybe the Empire did it, especially with Maul running around. I could see them kind of, taking some retribution. Not to mention, the Night Brothers did help Maul in the Son of Dathomir comic, which was going to be part of the Clone Wars. So I think that there's definitely some vengeance that could have been taken there. When we see Dathomir in Star Wars Rebels, it looks like just this bleak and dead place. Now, we only saw one part of it, and it's possible that the Separatists only wiped out some of the Night Sisters, and maybe only some of the Night Brothers are dead, and there are other clans on other parts of the planet. That actually does seem likely. But I think that probably the Night Brothers that we met in the Clone Wars they're probably gone. Jack Flash McCain asks how big I think the Chiss ascendancy is when compared to the Empire or the Republic or the New Republic. I see them as probably being smaller, but more technologically advanced. It sounds like, at least in some areas, they have succeeded where the Empire has failed with things like cloaking technology. So I think that if you compare their militaries, they could possibly be comparable in a fight, even though I think the ascendancy is smaller. But then again, Thrawn does feel a little threatened by the Empire and the Republic, and they want to make sure, he wants to make sure the Clone Wars don't creep into their territory, and then he comes out and he wants to make sure the Empire doesn't set their eyes on the Chiss, and so he starts to work with them. So I imagine that he does feel a little bit threatened by the size of the Empire, but I also feel like, they could probably put up a pretty solid fight. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.